Okay, if you watch the primer, then you would see that I pulled a few nodes in here from just a file like this, and that's my desktop. And I went ahead and started over because there's a couple changes I made, primarily to the some of the graphics and stuff like that, and how I did the alpha. But basically, it was pretty simple. Um, if you saw the skull that I did here, let's see here. I renamed it something different. I used basically this actual RGB as the alpha. I just basically grayscaled it and dropped it into the alpha. I figured I'd get more detail that way. So that's really all I did. Just tweak the levels a little bit to make sure it's not overblown. And because of that, I just wanted to start from scratch for anybody who does, because the primer that I did, the first video, is optional. You don't really have to watch it. So we're just continuing on from the After Effects tutorial where we did the overlay of the skull. So let's go ahead and let's get going with that. So there's a couple ways you can bring in files into Fusion, and I'm not going to go through everything as far as the interface because there's plenty of tutorials for that, but you can just drag like this and that'll bring it in. And if I hit 2 on my keyboard, then it comes up there. That's me being a goofball. And you could scroll out by holding Control and middle mouse rolling. Hit fit, you can do something like that. The other way to bring in files is to go to the I/O and then go to Loader, and then you can bring in whatever you need. So like in this case, we want the skull. So now if I hit 1, then the skull comes up here. So just hit fit. And then obviously you can also drag a loader off of here, and it does the same thing. And so we'll pull in the gradient, this guy. Let's turn off gather sequence to make sure. Yeah, okay. So let's make sure that's right, and that should be good. Okay, so these are our 3 files that we'll need to complete this tutorial. The key point and concept of this tutorial is how is using node-based approach different than the layer-based approach in After Effects. So we're going to basically build the same thing that was built in the After Effects tutorial, but then we're going to do it obviously all node-based. And I think you're going to see some distinct advantages. It's sometimes you need a little time to wrap your head around like looking at the nodes, but after you get that part out of the way, you'll realize that there's just major advantages to working with nodes over layers. And in my personal opinion, I'd pretty much pick nodes almost any day. So okay, so let's go ahead, and I'm going to shorten my timeline to the length of this actual video here. So let's see, it goes to trim out is at 113. So I'm just going to go ahead and change this to 113. And so then that way, if I press play on the timeline, it'll stop. So that's me looking creepy. Okay, so I kind of was doing that on purpose, trying to like look like really creepy and then go serious. So anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to use this bar to phase over this this skull face. So let's go ahead and let's load that up into 1. Let's load this up into 2. So first thing we need to do is match the skull to my head before we go forward. And basically all we need to do is link these 2 together and then use a transform to kind of rotate and scale this a little bit so it fits right over my head. So I'm going to just go ahead, and there's a couple ways. Again, you can pull off of here if the node is up here. For instance, let's see, the merge is right here, so we'll need one of those. There's no transform up here that I know of, but that would be one I'd probably put in there custom, but I'm not doing anything custom at this point, so my Fusion looks just like your Fusion. So I'm just going to go ahead and go to transform. The way I got to that menu was just right click and then just go to transform down here and just drop a transform in. So from here, so I'm going to plug the red into the yellow there, which is basically like the main input. And then I'm going to plug, this is going to be my background. So I want to be able to see this. So that goes into the yellow. That's the main input. And if you scroll over it, you can see it will say like merge background. and then this will say foreground. So merge foreground, and like that. Now you can tell that the alpha is being used already in this node here. And by the way, I expanded my nodes out. Usually they're thinner than this, but I like being able to see the icons because it just helps me navigate a little bit better. And it was a little bit tricky finding the setting for that. I would like to tell you how I did it right now, but at the moment actually it's kind of eluding me. I'd have to look it up again. But there's a setting that you can roll out the nodes so that they're bigger like this. Anyway, let me go back to the tutorial. So as you can see, the alpha is like, it already came in the way I set it up in Photoshop. Like Fusion just automatically knew what to do with it. So you can actually turn, you can say make alpha solid, and it goes back to what you see in Photoshop without the alpha being applied. You can post multiply the alpha. That's something you use for certain kinds of keying, and we'll get into that later. So anyway, I just want to show you that. Let's go back to the file. So now we need to make sure that this thing overlays on top of this thing. So if we come to the merge and hit 2, you can see that it's showing basically what this node is combining. So obviously foreground, background. And then if we click on the transform, we get this like little widget in here, and we can just click in here and drag this like so. And then if you look, there's a little circle here, and I can interactively grab that circle by just clicking on it and start rotating. And then I'm going to go ahead and change the size a little bit more, and the size is set up right here. If I keep this use size and aspect, then it will move everything together. Like so, but you may want to actually do it like X and Y, like so. It just depends on how you want to work with it. For this one, I'll see if I can use this, like so, maybe like that, and then just kind of position it. And I'm just trying to kind of match my head. This looks so funny. Anyway, just gotta laugh at myself sometimes. Alright, so that looks pretty good. We'll just leave it like that for now. And then this has got to tie in too. Okay, so eventually we're actually going to break this off because that's going to be merged in later. But now that I know that I've got it pretty much in the right spot, I can go ahead and just break that off. And what I want to do is I want to have this be an alpha that crosses in front of this, basically. The way we need to do that is we need to pull in a background, which is in the nuke tutorial that this is basically replacing. This tutorial is replacing. This was, I think it was the constant node is what they called it. So, and in Unreal, you would use a constant for a color, but in here it's like background. So we'll just put that in there, and it's black, and that's basically what we want. Although I see we get a little problem up here. Hopefully that's not final. I'm not sure. That might be a problem with the alpha. So we may need to adjust that later. That would be something that you would like garbage mat out or something if you had a problem, or you can go back into Photoshop and fix it. So actually we have it open in Photoshop, so might as well just come into here, go to the alpha, and hit Control Delete. We'll fill with the background color. So let's just save that, Control S, and see if that gets rid of it. I wonder if you have to reload this for it to update. So it doesn't look like it's gone away yet. And I don't know if it's auto updating or not. But what I could always do too is just pull in the same node, like so. Drop it right into there, and oops, it didn't work right. Let's kill that. Drop that into there. Nope, it did not fix it. So we can go into that later. I don't want to get off track here. So anyway, let's go ahead and just keep moving forward. So now what we want to do is we're going to need a transform that moves this node. So let's go ahead and use this though, first of all, in the alpha, and we'll see what happens here. So this is basically, if you scroll over this, you'll see this is the mask effect. So this is going to be working as a mask. And right now, you don't really see it so much. It would be masking out, basically. Let's see if we can move this around a little bit. That's what I'm going to move around. Go to 1. So the way we want to move this, actually, though, is really using the transform. So let's go ahead and just drop another transform in. So the important thing about nodes is that you keep your work organized and basically separate. So I can change like this one node, and then it's right here in front of me, and all I have to do is click on it to go and make some changes. I don't have to like roll it out like you would in After Effects. So I think it's just more efficient as a workflow. Okay, so now that I have this in here, what I can do is I can basically move this around, and you can see like now it's masking it out. But it's using the wrong kind of mask, because what we really want to use for this is we want to turn this into a luminance mask. So right now it's basically just say, is there pixels there? And it say yes. Okay, then then show the whole item. If there's not pixels there, then it's saying okay, then mask it out. So basically that's what it's doing. But what we want to really use is a luminance. So we come back to here and we go to next to channels. We go to this little box right here, and we click on that, and then we're just going to switch this to luminance. And so now you can see it's actually starting to use that gradation. So if we're following the other tutorial, which you should have watched by now, we would come to our transform here, and then we can use the aspect to just crunch this down like so. I think right there looks good. And then we can go ahead and just move this up. And one thing I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to take this transform's rotation, and I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to come down to here and then paste this into that as well. So it'll basically have a little tilt to it, and then that way it should basically kind of reveal maybe more naturally, if you will. So all right, so now that I've got that transform and that's set up here where I want it, and of course we can't see anything until we pull this down. What I'm going to do is actually I'm going to right click over over the center right here and say animate. And so once I do that, what it did is it dropped a keyframe here. You can see there's like a little green tick there. And what I want to do is I'm actually going to come to the end frame, and then I'm just going to pull this down here. Let's see, about right there or so. So now you can see if I scroll the timeline, it's actually animating it. And then if you ever want to actually mess with the keyframes themselves, you can come into these the timeline and actually adjust them manually. And you could set more keyframes too if you wanted to have it like right at a specific spot. You can just go ahead and here and move it, or you can go in and set a keyframe manually. So okay, so let's just keep moving forward, and now let's just do this really quick. Let's see where we're at. Yeah, that looks right. Okay, now here's where the node base is going to become really powerful. So in After Effects, you had to duplicate all of these layers to keep working, but in the node-based compositing, you actually can basically break off. You can break off like this piece right here into just another set of instructions. So if I want to reuse this, I can just put another transform down or whatever, or color correct for that matter, and just reuse another color correct or drive this into another color correct without having to make another node for this. So in that case, I'm going to just move things around a little bit. I like to try to keep things laid out nicely so that things make sense to me. So let's see here. It actually, yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make another merge like this. And I'm going to go ahead and I want the exact same transform to be the foreground here. And then I'm going to use this to be the background again. Okay. So we're basically just, this is going to look almost exactly like this at this point, except for we just don't have the alpha. So if I hit 2 on it, you can see it'll look like just the same. But between here and here, we want to adjust the color, and we're going to put a glow on it like we had in the other video. So to do that, what I can do is I can go ahead and right click, and I can come to color. So it's pretty, it's pretty simple. And you just go to color corrector, and then you can just drive it into here first, and then drive it into, this would be the foreground color. There we go. And then from here, all you have to do is pull it to whatever color you want, and you're there. And pretty fast. You've got contrast, you've got gain, you've got all these other things you can play with. I'm not getting into the specifics of all these, but play around with them. You can look at the histogram from here, levels, all kinds of different color adjustments can be made from this one node. It's very, very, very powerful. So, and it's a node you'll probably be using a lot. So anyway, so from here, let's put in a glow. So let's go ahead and just get another one, and we'll go into blur and glow. So we just go ahead and pull that in, drive that into there, drive this into the foreground now. And then, so you can see it's already started to glow. You can set the glow to how much you want, like so. I think that looks kind of neat. And then there's different filters too. So that's Gaussian, but you can go ahead and you can try different filters and see if you like different filters better. Solarize, that's kind of interesting. I still think I like Gaussian the best. So we'll leave it like that. And at this point, let's say we want to use this bar, but remember in the other video, when they made the second bar, they adjusted the positioning of this. So we're not going to want the exact same transform. But what we can do is hit Control-C, Control-V. So let's go actually and delete that. We'll drive that back into there. But we want some of the properties of the transform right here. So like remember we tilted this, and we did the animation on it. So we want both of those things, but we don't want them identical. So we're just making a second one. And I'm going to go ahead and just drag this into the alpha. So you can see right there, it's doing the exact same thing as the other one. Okay, so if we actually went here and put that there, and then we played these, they're going to look a tiny bit different because of the glow, but otherwise, they're pretty close to the same. You see, oh yeah, the other thing is too is remember I didn't set this to luminance, right? So we have to go over to here and set this to luminance. So there we go. So let's go back now, play it one more time. So there you go. So it's like basically identical. Okay, but what we want to do is we want to drag this one down a little bit at our 2 keyframes. So we're going to just I'm going to eyeball it for now, like so. I'm going to drag that down. I'm going to come here and I'm going to drag, let's go down a little lower, and I'm going to drag that down a little bit. Okay, now we'll see how it looks, and then we can adjust it later. But I know it's going to be somewhere in that range. Okay, so next part is, let's go ahead and start putting these all together, right? So we need another merge node. Just drag that out, and let's get in a little bit closer here. So again, just control middle mouse wheel. It's so weird. They have a hotkey for this, and it's to hit left key and middle mouse together, and you can smooth zoom in and out. But I find it very awkward to do that. So I basically just use the control middle mouse wheel. It just seems so much easier. Okay, so now what we need to do is we're going to set the green one as the background, and then we're going to set the blue one as the foreground. Okay, and then we are going to, let's go ahead and see what we've got going on here. So what's going to happen is we shouldn't be seeing, so the blue one should be completely covering the green one. So we'll hit 1 on our keyboard. Actually, sorry, no, now it's at 1 and 2. I hit 2. And then you shouldn't see any of the green, okay? But when we come to here, we can change the blending style. So we can change this to, it's at normal, obviously, and we could go to like overlay. or we can go to soft light. But I'm thinking we're going to want something that lightens. So we'll do something like that, like lighten or add. Yeah, I think that should work actually. Lighten looks really good. So let's go ahead and just hit play now. So you can see that looks pretty cool. And actually, I don't even know if I need to adjust that anymore. I mean, it looks pretty nice. And it's pretty comparable to what we had before. So now you can see it may look a little bit confusing. And like I said, it does take some time sometimes to get your head wrapped around nodes. But you'll find over time it just becomes so much faster to click around and to adjust things. And once your head starts like getting used to it, you get used to seeing it, you'll really appreciate the nodes. And I like to kind of do hierarchies too of like what's the most background thing. Like I would have that all the way at the top, and then you know, some of the prime elements like the you know, like these that I imported, you know, and then maybe on the second row, you know, you start having like your first adjustments, second adjustments, third adjustments. So just some organization so your head doesn't explode when you're looking at these things. But eventually, you know, there will be lots of stuff, but you can label them, and that'll help you to, we'll get into that later, but you can label stuff and that'll help you to keep yourself organized. Okay, so let's go ahead and just pull our final merge in, because we're almost there. And we'll drag that as the background. Okay, and then we will take this and put this in, not that, that as the foreground. And then from here, let's go ahead and hit 2. And then we'll change this to, let's see, where was it? Lighten, like so. Okay. So now it's basically the same kind of tutorial, same kind of thing. It could probably be tweaked a little bit to make it a little bit better. It's not perfect, but it's just a demo of how to set up the same kind of scenario in nodes. And the big takeaway is just the difference between what happens in nodes versus what happens in layers. And that is it. So the last thing you'd want to do is you'd want to export this, and to do that you would just drag in this save file. And let's go ahead, I already exported this once, so let me turn that off. And we actually want to make this, if you want it as a movie, you're gonna have to pick like QuickTime Movie, and then give it a name, of course. And we'll just call this, we have Skullhead. I'm going to call it Skullhead 2. Like so, and say save. Okay, but it hasn't rendered yet, so just because we saved it, that's just basically setting up where you're going to save it. So we need to connect this in, select this, and then from here, you've got all these different things you can export, but format is probably where you're going to spend, you know, your first amount of time in, because you want to make sure that you're exporting it the way you want. And we'll just leave it at H.264, and then, you know, you can say how much quality you want. You know, I'm just going to leave it alone for now, and then I'll go ahead and just hit render down here, and we'll go ahead and say, yeah, full size, final, and let's say save. My eyes are a little bit off there. The first one I did, I tweaked it more, took more time on it. But so right now it's rendering in the background. I can pause the video, and then when it's done rendering, I can come back. All right, while it's rendering, you'll actually get to watch it doing this. Apparently I didn't hit the right button before, so I thought it was rendering, but it wasn't. So I just thought I'd throw the video back on and let you see how this works. So we'll come back in a second and look at the final. Okay, it tells me the render's complete. It tells me the frames, and then of course in my file, here's my skull head. If you're using QuickTimes, I said QuickTimes with a plural, QuickTime. I think if you hit Control F, it goes full screen. There we go, just like that. I look half dead right there. All right. That's me tired, I think. All right, thanks for watching. That's just an intro into node-based and what it means and how it's different than using After Effects and a layer-based approach. So thanks for watching again, and have a good day.